So I will introduce you Orphanet, but before doing that, the challenges of rare diseases. So um, rare diseases are those that concerns few people at the same time, so low prevalence diseases, and they are highly variable from one disease to another, but they all share the challenges due to their rarity. So rarity poses challenges because they are so numerous that any doctor can know them all. So the first challenge is giving a name to the patient or having a rare disease, so posing a diagnosis, and then helping patients navigate the healthcare system to reach the right experts, because rare diseases are rare, but experts are rare as well. And providing information to doctors on best practices to take care of their patients. But it poses public health problems because we don't know exactly how many patients are there, what is their use of healthcare systems, in order to commission health services appropriately and to focus service delivery on specific patient needs. And that is particularly needed in emergency situations. And then for research, identifying patients, it's going alone. Identifying patients for clinical research, sharing data across databases, registries, repositories, and electronic health record. That is a crucial step in rare disease research. And then planning clinical trials and identifying the markets in order to negotiate the prices for orphan drugs, so medications for rare diseases. So what are rare diseases? We don't have a single universal definition, for, for rare diseases, but all the definitions are based on in prevalence. Prevalence is the number of patients at the same time in a given population. So you see that there are huge differences between the definitions, and we adopt the European definition that is less than 50 patients for 100,000 inhabitants. The consequence of that is that all the countries, all the regions in the world share a largely overlapping list of diseases. But as you will see in the next slide, they cover a very different population of rare disease patients. How many rare diseases are out there? So to count rare diseases, we need to adopt a common definition. At Orphanet, we have adopted a clinical definition of rare diseases that is represented here by the orange dots. And based on this clinical definition, there are around 6,000, or between 6,000 and 7,000 rare diseases. You need to know that it's a very evolving field in which new diseases are discovered all the time. So we published an epidemiological study based on the data on prevalence, on point prevalence that we have in the Orphanet database, in order to know better what are these rare diseases. So strikingly, most of rare diseases are pediatric. So up to 88% of rare diseases affects exclusively or can affect children. 1/3 are not genetic in origin, and the vast majority are prevalent diseases, so chronic diseases, but we have 14% of rare diseases that are incident, so including rare cancers, rare infectious diseases, are diseases due to toxic effects. And to answer the question of how many patients suffering from a rare disease are over the world, in that study, based on the Orphanet database on epidemiological data, based on literature, we we calculate what we consider the best minimum estimate of the global prevalence, that is between 3 and 3.5 and 6, let's say, of the population, a percent of the population, so up to more than 400 million people worldwide. But strikingly, we saw that the vast majority of the people suffering from a rare disease have one of the most 390 most prevalent diseases, and 2% of the patients share 90% of the diseases. So most rare diseases concern a very few number of people. That is extremely important because those are the most vulnerable amongst the vulnerable. So because of all these challenges, Orphanet exists since more than 20 years ago with 3 main missions. The first one is to improve the visibility of rare disease by providing a common language and nomenclature across sectors, healthcare and research, but also across countries, because this nomenclature is in several languages. And that are the ORFA codes. I will introduce them more in detail later on. Provide high quality information and also information on where experts are and services are on rare diseases, and contribute to the generation of knowledge by putting together all the data about rare diseases in a knowledge base that is centered in the nomenclature, that is aligned with other nomenclatures for interoperability, and that is annotated with phenotypes, with disability facts, with genetic genes that are related with rare disease, epidemiological data, information, textual information, the information on medications, orphan designations and drugs, and a directory of expert resources for rare diseases in the countries of the Orphanet network that you can see here. So the dark blue are full members and yellow ones are contact points. So based on this Orphanet knowledge base, there are several products, if I may talk like this. The most, let's say, famous one is the Orphanet website, that is the information website, orpha.net, that is a multilingual website in which people can have the information disease by disease. But then we have a data download platform that is orphadata.org, in which you have free data sets and on the scientific information of rare diseases, and some data sets available on request on the textual information and expert resources. And the free part of Orphanet has been labeled Elixir Core Data Resource, that is a label in Europe that recognize conceptual authorities in different domains. And then we have the ontologies, the Orphanet Rare Disease Ontology, and an ontological module that connects by urban associations the HPO ontology, that is a human phenotype ontology produced by the, that is translated in Chinese, by the way, that is produced by the Jackson Institute in the US, and the Orphanet ontology. So here you have the detail of the kind of data you can have and the formats in which it is available. And of course, it is also documentation and tutorials are also available. So now let me introduce the nomenclature, so the ORFA codes, but that is, I think, most important in this meeting. So as far as in 2009, in the Council recommendation on action in the field of rare disease by the European Commission, improved codification of rare disease was set as a priority. Why? Because there is no medical terminology that include all rare diseases, And even if when rare diseases are included, they are mixed up amongst non-rare diseases. So there is no way to know, to differentiate the rare from the non-rare, and to make aggregated data based on rarity for exploitation purposes. So that's why we fill this gap, producing the only specific nomenclature on rare diseases with around 6,000 rare disorders, but more than 10,000 concepts, in which there is a unique identifier, the ORFA code, that is noted ORFA, the 2 points and the number, that is specific for rare diseases, and that is never reused. So the code is stable over the time. The nomenclature has a preferred term, synonyms, a definition, and several metadata. And it is translated in 9 languages, and ongoing, the new translations are ongoing in Japanese, in Russian, in Turkish, and in Chinese. The nomenclature sticks to the European definition, so less than 2 cases less than 1 cases in 2,000 inhabitants, and a disease is created with, there are at minimum 2 individual cases. The nomenclature follows a logical structure, so the 6,000, as I said, follow the clinical definition. Why this definition? Because it is the most comprehensive one that is really covering all rare disease, so genetic and non-genetic diseases that for which the cause is known or unknown, because the clinical definition describes what the patient has and what the doctor sees, and that is the most universal one. But of course, each disease can be subdivided into subtypes, for instance, genetic subtypes, and grouped into clinical groups or categories that allows for the organization of the nomenclature. The classification of rare diseases in ORPHANET is multi-hierarchical because most of the rare diseases are multisystemic diseases and can be so multi-classified inside the same classification. And each classification follows a medical specialty. So you have rare cardiac diseases, rare neurological diseases, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to make statistical analysis, you need to count the disease only once. And that's why we produce a linearization for statistical purposes in which diseases are classified in their preferential classification. And for that, we set up a number of rules to do that in coherence. This nomenclature is, we call that the interoperability backbone for rare diseases. Why? Because the nomenclature is connected, so mapped through semantic relationships to other medical terminologies, but also through semantic relationships to other pieces of data, like functional consequences or disabilities related to rare diseases, orphan drugs, phenotypes using HPO, and the genes with a kind of relationship between the gene and the disease. And genes are also connected to other external resources, completing the genetic information. And the ORPHANET nomenclature is used in the healthcare setting because it is a recommendation of the European Commission, and in the research setting in registries, cohorts, and biobanks. You can find ORFA codes, of course, in the ORPHANET website. We produce a PDF because it is a useful format for coders once a year. The whole nomenclature is downloadable in ORFA data, and that files are updated every month. And then we have a specific pack for the codification in countries, in which the recommendation that was set up by the RD Action is that the nomenclature is released once a year in July. And of course, the ontology of rare diseases. Then we have a GitHub in which you can have the monthly versions of the nomenclature with the differentials, and a series of other formats like the ORFA packets, in which you have for each ORFA code all the data that is related to that. So the nomenclature data, the epidemiology, the parents and child in the classification, genes, HPO. So it's an exchange format similar to the phenopacket that is produced by HPO for phenotypes, and that is in a computable format in JSON on YAML, and of course, tracking changes. So we provide files and tools for integration, the ontologies with a SparkQL endpoint. You can download in ORFA data, but also in BioPortal, and in the ontologies look at service of the EBI. And we are setting APIs on demand and a specific API for codification in the RD code website, together with guidelines, guidance, and support, a help desk, and trainings that are being prepared that will be delivered in local language by Orphanet national hubs. So ORFA codes are key for semantic interoperability because it provides a common language between countries, between sectors, and it is updated, so follow up the evolved knowledge on rare diseases that is very dynamic, allowing for aggregation by rare diseases groupings specific for rare diseases, allows for the isolation of rare diseases from common diseases, and maintaining interoperability between health and research that are using different terminologies. And it is a foundational part of a global interoperability ecosystem in Europe, setting the research data and resources infrastructure. So we need to make this more than 300,000 million patients worldwide count. So rare diseases data sets should be present in electronic health records across countries in order to exchange data in a standard exchange format, data exchange format. We want to have the ORFA codes present in the electronic patient summaries for unplanned care, because it's where the patients are the most vulnerable in their lives. And also, we need to have standard exchange formats to be set up to allow healthcare data, including patient consent, to be exported for secondary use. And for rare diseases, that should include the ORFA code, but also a minimum set of data that are necessary for evidence policymaking, research, and a better care. I thank you very much and I leave you with this excellent sentence from a friend of mine, saying that if we cannot count rare disease patients, they do not count. Thank you very much.